Welcome back for another video. It's a wildcard special this week with exactly 50% of the experts having pressed the button this week. As always, we'll dig into their most bought and sold players, the experts wildcard, the template team and more. Huge thanks to all the experts. We're still getting well over 100 responses every week, which makes for invaluable data for us to benefit from. Let's get into it. Just quickly, I've been nominated for the Football Content Awards and I'm going to be going with my girlfriend to hopefully bring the trophy home this year. If you found value in my FPL content, I'll link below to cast your vote. It takes a few seconds on their website and you don't need to sign up or anything. Thanks very much for your vote. So let's start off with the manager highlight. And Askar's moved top of the Experts League with a score of 79 points, which takes him up to 19k overall. Phenomenal rank this early on. Tom Kidd got the biggest score in the league with 97 points, which took him from 830k to 68k in one go. A nice reminder that one very good game week can change everything. Hopefully that'll be one of you watching this week. So let's break down the transfer activity followed by the most bought and sold players. Just 6% are rolling this week, 13% making one move, 20% making two, 10% making three, and my manager's making 4 transfers. Exactly 50% have activated their wildcards, and we've got a wildcard team from a couple of our managers to dig into later. I should point out that just because many are activating their wildcard, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to. You might have 2 or 3 Arsenal players already. You might have Haaland, Bumo for example, or you can get those transfers, and that's going to be the core of most wildcard teams. And having Salah for one more week is also a big edge because the vast majority of the wildcarders are selling him. So why are they selling Salah? Well, Haaland's pretty much non-negotiable. Saka's got the better fixtures and he is 2.8 mil cheaper. So by process of elimination, there's just no room for Salah. Despite how great he is as an FPL asset, having all 3 just kills your team balance too much for me. So anyway, let's have a look at their most bought and sold players this week. It is indeed Salah who's the most sold, 74% have gotten rid of him. That in itself is a massive hedge against the wildcarders if you've used yours already or if you're waiting another week and you've got Salah. So Bumo's the most transferred in, 74% have picked him up. He ticks literally all the boxes. He's relatively cheap for 7.2 mil. He's on penalties, he's on set pieces, he's Brentford's talisman, good long-term fixtures as well, including 3 home games in the next 4. Saka's the second top transfer, 66% have bought him. There was some concern of an injury after he came off at half-time against City last game, but it's purely tactical. He started in the League Cup midweek, as Arsenal knocked Bolton out of the League Cup winning 5-1. He came off at 71 minutes. Gabriel was named on a bench and he came on second half, 61% have bought him. 61% have also bought Semenyo. He feels like probably the most explosive of the super cheap picks. He's got 2 goals and assists so far, but the fixtures have turned nicely for the next 2. He's got Southampton and Leicester. If you get him yourself, just make sure you've got a strategy to bench him if you can, because after that they've got Arsenal, Villa and Man City. So 38% have bought Raya. Now he missed that League Cup game with a reported thigh issue. Assuming that we don't get a clear update before the deadline, it makes him a bit of a headache on the wildcard. My gut feeling is that he's going to be fine and he'll start. Arteta didn't rule him out of the weekend, so at a minimum there is a chance he plays. An interesting thought experiment here is, do you pick him regardless and take the potential 0-pointer with the expectation that he plays in Game Week 7? Or another way of framing it is, does Raya with 1 fewer game outscore someone like Fleck in longer term? Do you think he would? 63% have sold Jota. He is a logical sell on the wildcard. And even not on the wildcard, it does make sense to go Jota to Bumo. However, the League Cup lineup on Wednesday might have given us a strong hint of how Slot's going to line up in Game Week 6. Jota started and he got a brace, but he came off earlier, while Darwin played the full 90 and he blanked. Luis Diaz is also on the bench, and that might point towards the front 3 of Diaz, Jota and Salah on the weekend. Gakpo started in left wing and he got a brace. So if it is that front 3, then Gakpo likely comes on second half. 28% have bought Diaz this week. Calvert-Lewin versus Wood's been a hot topic for the budget forward slot on the wildcard, 6 mil and 6.1 mil, both on penalties, both have got good fixtures. It's pretty decisive here, 30% have bought Calvert-Lewin, Wood doesn't make the table. It's unlikely that any of the 4 mil keepers get a start for the foreseeable future, but Fabianski is their favoured pick here. He's the only one that's gotten any minutes so far this season, when Ariel had to go off at half time. And in fairness, West Ham have been in terrible form, so perhaps there's an outside chance that Lopetegui shakes it up and starts him. Other than that, you'd be counting on a keeper injury for a 4 mil keeper to play. The following keepers are backups for 4 mil. Valdemarsson, Ward, Bender, Begovic, Turner and Fabianski. It's probably a redundant conversation, but if you're getting a 4 mil keeper, get one of those for that outside chance that they could play at some point. 24% have bought Lewis, who was someone we discussed in the team selection video. He's made his way into my wildcard team. Now there is a chance he gets a bit more minutes following Rodri's injury, but make no mistake, he's not nailed. There's a strong likelihood of knowing whether he starts in Game Week 6, 7, 10 and 11 with some early team news though. Onto the chip overview. So no free hits, bench boosts or triple captains active this week, unsurprisingly. However, as we say, 50% of wildcard this week, leaving a quarter of the experts still holding on to their wildcard. We've got a couple of experts wildcards to look at. FPL Architect first. He's gone with Raya in goal, Trent, Gabriel and Lewis as his back three. In midfield he's got Semenyo, Saka, Bumo, Diaz and Rodgers, and up front Haaland and Solanke. On his bench he's got Valdemarson, Calvert-Lewin, Murillo and Greaves. Seems like a tight call. He's given Rodgers the start over Calvert-Lewin, with Rodgers away at Ipswich and Calvert-Lewin home to Palace. Here's what Architect had to say. Activating the wildcard this game it was an easy decision. The team was full of problems and underperforming players, and I had zero Arsenal cover. Triple Arsenal is an essential part of any wildcard team, and Haaland's of course leading the attack. Throw in Bumo, double at Liverpool and a few other players that are entering great fixture runs, and the wildcard team looks pretty good to me. Diaz is in after a rest midweek, and if he becomes a problem later down the line, I can move him on to another midfielder in that bracket. Calvert-Lewin's fixtures are really good when Semenyo's drop off. And the last wildcard we'll look at is FPL Fishes. He's got Raya and Valdemarson as his keepers, Gabriel, Greaves, Trent, Lewis and Colwell at the back, Smith Rowe, Rodgers, Bumo, Diaz, Saka in midfield, Jackson, Calvert-Lewin and Haaland up top. So a bit of variation in this one. Here's what he had to say. I committed to wildcard 6 back in Game Week 4 by selling Gabriel and Saka for a hit, ouch. After a dreadful Game Week 5, I'm happy to be able to make some big changes to my squad. Triple Arsenal are a must, and I prefer double defence to attack. There's no standout 4.5 mil set and forget keeper, so I'm going to Raya, and I'm not planning to change him until wildcard 2. I've learned my lesson from Gabriel. Whenever I watch Liverpool play without Trent, I hate it, so I'm just getting him and I'm keeping him no matter the fixture. Lewis is a risky pick that I've had since Game Week 2. But if he plays, he's dynamite. He won't play them all though, so Colwell's a solid fourth defender when needed. Saka will be my captain this week. He's got the best fixture and he's yet to blank. Diaz is in the form of his life, and while he can't match Salah longer term, he doesn't need to. He's considerably cheaper. Mbumo's an FPL dream, nailed on penalties and the talisman, and Rodgers is great for his price and an easy pick. I'm torn between Smith Rowe and Semenyo. Smith Rowe's done brilliantly so far, but I've got some value tied up in him. But Semenyo also looks great and he's got two brilliant fixtures next. Haaland needs no justification, he's inevitable. I've been trying to find a way to fit Palmer in, but I can't do it without sacrifices I don't want to make, so Jackson comes in instead. Calvert-Lewin's looking like the DCL of old, and he's a great price point with some top fixtures. It's a rather template team, but it's template for a reason. The next wildcard's a long time away, plenty of solid picks that will stick around for a long time, with a few riskier picks that could be gold. Thanks for sending in, gents, best of luck on the wildcards. On to Game Week 6 Experts Captaincy. Here's how they're all faring this week. Haaland's first of 63%, and then it's Saka of 29%, and then Salah 8%. Just the three names this week after a lot more variety back in Game Week 5. Saka and Salah are genuinely great alternatives to Haaland this week, especially if you're chasing some upside. We saw FPL Fishes going with Saka. They certainly won't be as popular, so there's big upside there. Looking at the projected goals for this graphic from Rob T FPL, Arsenal have got the most with 2.7 this game week, and then it's Liverpool 2.45, and then it's Man City 2.15, which also points towards a hedge against Haaland if you're brave enough. As far as FPL review projections, it's got Saka top on 7.2, Salah's on 7, Palmer 6.7 and Haaland 6.4. Palmer's someone we've not really discussed yet. In fact, 10% was selling him this week. They're starting to show some form, Chelsea, and they're home to Brighton, who will be without Hurza on the touchline following a red card last game week. Let us know in the comments who your captain is going to be. And if this has been a useful video so far, make sure you hit like to show support and hit subscribe. Moving on to the Experts Team for Game Week 6. It's quite tricky to project exactly how the team's going to look with so many wildcards and hundreds of transfers at play, but here it is. It's Raya in goal, it's Trent, Gabriel and Lewis in defence, Eze, Saka, Semenyo, Luis Diaz in midfield, Haaland, Calvert-Lewin and Solanke up top. It's a very strong bench for Fabianski, Rodgers, Robertson and Greaves. Now FPL Architect had Rodgers starting over Calvert-Lewin on his wildcard, so perhaps that's how it should line up. Triple Arsenal, double City, double Liverpool is a very strong foundation for any team right now. I'd love to see Foden get a couple starts in a row, and then he could be a really interesting differential. Of course, we could get some early team news in the next two game weeks if we're feeling a punt on him. He didn't have the best game in the League Cup though. It could boil down to De Bruyne's availability this week, though against Arsenal they had no De Bruyne and no Foden in the 11. One way you could shape your wildcard up to leave the door open there is going with three of Haaland, Saka and Palmer. You get Palmer's awesome next two fixtures, and then you've got that flexibility to bring in a Foden type asset. Let's finish up with the experts' final thoughts and tips. Here's what they had to say for Game Week 6. Very Messi is saving his wildcard. He says, I'm going to wait until the international break to hit my wildcard. and hoping the late shift to the new template players, particularly Saka and Gabriel, doesn't hurt me. Maybe Eze will even shock the world with a return. Another one to balance out the wildcard hype. Marco says, while many managers are playing their wildcard this week, I'm holding mine with a view to play it when the team needs it. After a good start, I'm well set up with Gabriel and Saka in play since Game Week 1, and I think a -4 hit this week will cover most key wildcard picks, and hopefully give me an advantage in the coming weeks ahead. #play your own game. Andrew Debenham says, with European games and international breaks on the horizon, we could be hitting rotation central. FPL is a squad game, so retaining a sound bench will be key to navigating the coming weeks. Bon FPLT says, Arsenal attackers over defenders for me. 2 home games against new promoted teams consecutively is underrated in my opinion. FPL Cholo says, there will be temptation to find differentials so your wildcard isn't exactly template, but the best and simplest advice for wildcard is to pick the best possible team and ensure you've got depth at all positions. Don't worry about effective ownership. And lastly, FPL JMO says, Palmer increasingly coming into my thinking. He was fixture proof last season, he's now for starts and he's on penalties. He could be a differential on the wildcard. Thanks very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe for more FPL content like this every game all season. Cast your vote on the Football Content Awards with the link below. See you soon for the next one.